So here we go with teriyaki beef skewers, a Japanese recipe, and we cook the meat in the teriyaki style. So it might feel like or you might want to say you're making a teriyaki sauce. It's not actually the sauce that's teriyaki, it's the way in which we're cooking the meat and then, or the protein, and then recoating it. That is the teriyaki, or the Japanese teriyaki style. A couple of things that I have got sorted out or organised ahead of time, I suppose, is I have let my skewers soak. So I've got metal skewers and I've got bamboo. I've let them soak overnight so that they're not going to burn. I was unable to source mirin, so I'm using Chinese cooking wine. So that's a sweet version like your mirin. I couldn't source spring onions, so I'm using chives instead. I am being cheeky and I'm using tinned pineapple, you would see there. So that means that it will be really soft on the skewers. I think the other thing, and one of the more important things to remember, is that you're cooking rice. So you're going to want to put your rice on as one of the first things you do. I've got a rice cooker here, but in the classroom you'll be cooking on the stove, so just remember to get your rice started. It'll take about 10 minutes to cook that rice. Get it started at the beginning. So you'll notice that I've got a Chinese soy sauce. You could use tamari instead, which is a more balanced and thicker version, more Japanese style version of the soy sauce. It's just that this is what I had in the cupboard. So I'm going to mince the garlic now. I'm using the smaller of my two knives. I had a longer knife that I'll use on the meat. So for me, I chop the base of the garlic off and then I peel that. Now what I'm going to do is use the side of the knife and then the base of the heel of my palm, and then I'm going to push down. And that's crushed the garlic, but we want to mince it, so we're going to go really small. Tip of my knife is on the board the whole time. My board's slipping. Moving my fingers out of the way, keeping them tucked in. So for my 1 teaspoon of minced ginger, I'm going to take again the outer layer off. When you've got really fresh ginger, you can leave it on, but typically I take it off. And same, some small slices, very thin slices, gluing the point of the knife to the board. So typically in Japanese cuisine, you wouldn't get large chunks of ginger or garlic. You really need to make sure that it's really minced, it's really fine. I would probably go to my microplane, and I would have done that at home. I am at home, but your recipe says minced, so I'm showing you the minced version. So the recipe at the top says you have 3/4 of a cup of water divided. So what I'm going to do is here's my 3/4 of a cup into my mixing bowl, into my jug, and then I'm going to take out 2 tablespoons of that water. This is my divided. 1 tablespoon, 2 tablespoons, and that is what I am using when I go with my corn flour, because you always mix corn flour with a cold liquid. This is cold water. You mix corn flour with a cold liquid before you put it in to the heat, which makes it swell and get glossy. So I've already started trimming the beef. I've got porterhouse, you'll have rump. I've got the longer knife and I am using tongs. So 1.5 centimetres, cutting with the longer strips first, and then I'll come back in and go in the other direction. So that's made just over a cup, 250 mils of liquid of marinade. And I've got the luxury of mixing it up. You're whisking it in the classroom. That honey's, I don't want the honey to settle too much. So I'm putting 1/2 cup in here to marinate my beef. Now you're using a Ziploc bag to marinate yours, and then I'm reserving the other half to make the sauce. So if I just check. So I'm adding the 1 teaspoon of corn flour to my cold water, to the 2 tablespoons of cold water, and it's not coming out, yes it is, to the 2 tablespoons of cold water that I had reserved. And then I'll just use a fork and slowly combine that together. So the recipe asks you for the sauce to be able to coat the spoon, and you can see how that brown glaze is sitting in the spoon. If I ran my finger through the middle, it leaves that line. It's thickening up. So the recipe says to coat the meat before you put it on the pan. I've got the pan on. I'm going to coat the pan. Just think it would be easier with regards to food handling and safer for me to coat the pan. I've got a heat resistant pastry brush. So it says once the pan's very hot, that's when so I've preheated my pan, that's when I go on with my skewers. I'm going to have to go on an angle. And I've got a wooden one. 3 minutes on each side. Now we're going to glaze the skewers. You can see that the sauce, get some light in there, is really quite thick, and I'm going to around here. Makes it nice and shiny. Plate up now. We'll try one with a skewer and one wooden skewer bamboo and one with the metal. And go. garnish with some coriander. And again, I'm sprinkling with chives because I didn't have the spring onions. A little leaf on the rice. There's a little single leaf on the rice.